Evening, everybody. How are we all doing?
How are you, Ricky? How are you
I'm
getting
good,
on?
mate. How are you, Joe?
Not too bad, not too bad.
Good.
I'm feeling refreshed after my week's holiday, so
Yeah, you got
yeah.
back and blew Van up.
Not sure I had up to do with that, to be honest, but
Hey, sure, that's not what Garage is saying, mate. Abuse is being blamed.
oh yeah, whatever. Heard it all before.
Good.
How's things at the farm anyway?
Good, mate. Really good. All coming together nicely at the minute. Very, very busy day packing. I think it was something like 49 boxes went out on courier today.
Wow,
Absolutely crazy. And more to go tomorrow as well.
wow, that's mad.
So, yeah, good stuff. It's all good stuff.
Well, I've
It is.
put together a couple of questions. We had some
Oh, you put
interesting
some
debates
questions, have
yesterday
you?
on live auction. I've got 4 questions. Just yesterday, people were throwing questions at us in the auction, which was quite nice, and we were having a bit of a chat. And I thought it'd be
Yeah.
cool to get your thoughts on it. So I know you're not looking at drums for your new system that you're thinking about running if you're doing some new ponds. But if you were going to be having a drum
Are
on
you
your system,
cold, Joe?
to be fair, it's not as warm up here as I guess in the polytunnels. No, to be fair, I'm
Great.
wearing the same T-shirt as I was yesterday, and I thought, well, I
Uh,
can't be wearing the same outfit two live streams in a row, can I? So I chucked
go
it
on,
on.
mate. Go for it.
So anyway, if you were running a drum on a new pond, which you might do, you might not. If you were running a drum, would you be running the cleaning pump off of a siphon or from the clean side of the drum,
Oh, you mean off like a header tank?
like a header tank, yeah? Or would you take the
Yeah.
water from the clean side?
I mean, I prefer. I just when I think about that setup, it all just seems so messy and unsightly for me, and it's you got all that setup to do for it. Prefer to take it out of the drum. From what I've seen, the internal cleaning pump seemed to be the one. To
Yeah.
be fair, that would solve the problems I have direct. To be fair, even a strainer, if I had one made, would probably solve that problem. But
Mm,
I think that's the cleaner way to do it. And again, less parts, less of something to go wrong as well. But in the case of the issues I'm having, it would fix that right now. There's just no way I could integrate that kind of setup in there without it looking an eyesore. And again, just adding further complexity to it.
yeah. I think what we were discussing yesterday is given the amount of like chemicals in tap water now, do you think it's almost taking from the clean side just means you're gonna have to be adding more tap water in every so often, aren't you?
Yeah,
To
well,
keep your feet maybe.
ultimately, obviously, all the water needs treating, regardless of where you're coming from. You're going to have to top your pond up. That's going to need treating, so that's just a given. But yeah, I think for me, it's just about again the ease of setup. The less
Yeah.
the less complicated steps you can put in it, the better. And that's sort of
Mm,
where I want to keep it. To be fair, but
yeah.
on the drum note, while you're saying it, there is a big thing chat I've been having with someone about kind of just a bit of devolution in the drums, to be
Mm,
fair, to I think make them more robust. And I know a company looking at a setup that is just fully removing the float sensors and just going back to a full manual cleaning setup, as in it's run on timers. So the how long it cleans for and how often and how frequently it cleans is all just manually set yourself on the timer. Because for
right.
me, that
Okay.
will remove most of the common problems and frustrations that come in them and almost make them kind of perfect, to be fair. It's sometimes you
Mm,
need to take that step back, and I think that would be an absolute killer move. Obviously, initially, it's going to take a little bit of tweaking to find your optimal setup, but once you're there and you've got a reliable motor, there's nothing to go wrong at that point. No draining ponds
yeah.
off or any of that ridiculous stuff that they can tend to do. So yeah, I'll wait to see that one come to fruition, because I think from how it's been described, it'd be a bit of a killer one.
Yeah. Best of both worlds. Yeah.
I
That's
think so.
interesting. Yeah. One other question that I had. What I've seen at the well, not seen at the farm really, to be honest, but one thing that I've been quite cautious about in my time koi keeping is sometimes taking a breeder that I've not necessarily had in the pond before and exposing my other fish to it. How much am I reading into that? And should it be in people's minds to, expose
Just only awareness, not worrying about doing it, because you can mix fish at any point. And depending on the age of the fish, how much it's been mixed, what it's been exposed to, your collection, the last time a fish was added, what they've been exposed to, mixing fish and adding fish is always one of the biggest stress events. This is why I have not a lot of time for, this is generally what happens, if there's a problem in a pond when a new fish has been added, it's kind of last fish in, first fish to be blamed. And it's often not. It can be the trigger, don't get me wrong, and sometimes you can be adding shit in there, don't get me wrong, but a lot of the time just the process alone of mixing that fish creates so much stress in the environment that that's when you cause in viral outbreak of all different types, bacterial outbreak potentially if you brought it in more so, which happens less frequently, and then parasitic outbreak just from the stress alone sometimes. But it's always a dangerous time. We mix fish a lot during quarantine, subjecting to a lot of stress. But even then, you just can't guarantee you've nailed it.
No,
because we can't expose them to everything. And at some point, they're going to hit something. And to be fair, some of the biggest troubles come in people who's had, say, the pond for 30 years, and for 20 of them years, they've not added a new fish.
Yeah,
they're the ones that are quite dangerous.
Yeah,
one group in that, but if you add something new into that and shift that dynamic, there's going to be shit kick off there. That I can assure you.
Yeah, well, that you mentioned that on one of the podcasts we did, and we spoke. You mentioned about like almost people living on an equilibrium, that the pond's just come to this point where it's looking after itself, and it's absolutely fine, but it's on a knife edge. That's if something changes, it can set other things off. And I'd never thought of it that way, but my grandma has a pond like that where she's only ever put fish in once, and they've just survived. But I think once she got a sturgeon, and she put a sturgeon in pond, and next thing she had a huge fungal outbreak, and she never saw that sturgeon again. So
no, it really is. So this is why I know going out and buying new fish at a weekend is, for a lot of koi keepers, absolutely a buzz. And don't get me wrong, I would be the same, but you have to know that is going to create a lot of stress and unsettled behavior and potential problems in the pond, because it's a constant stress factor.
Yeah.
In an ideal world, you'd only introduce fish, say, once a year. But I just know I've lived the world. I've served these people buying fish, every other weekend or something. They're in buying new fish. So don't get me wrong. A lot of the time it's absolutely fine, but you just need to be aware. Going back to the original question of what it can do, so you can deal with that moving forward and just catch anything before it becomes an issue.
I guess that's one of the benefits. I'm giving Koi Wholesale a bit of a plug here, is that you handle so many different breeders that they probably come into, your dealers' ponds and customers' ponds probably a little bit harder than if they were shipped direct from the breeder, and that you go to a dealer where they're maybe only ordering from one breeder.
You've got to know what's going off, especially in the cases of, like, I've seen a comment here. I'm not quite following the thread on it, to be honest with you, but I've seen CEV mentioned. But like CEV, the sleeping disease virus, that is one that you can really get caught out with. But again, from experience, I can tell you pretty much every breeder I deal with, whether or not they expose their fish. So those fish coming in, I know if they need treatment, we give them it all regardless. But I know the ones that really are not good to sell until we've got them fully showing all the symptoms and rolling over, as we say. So that we've fully triggered that in them, so that they fully recover from it before we actually release them for sale.
Is there anything in, say, a breeder like Marahiro, for example, breeds so many different varieties? Do his fish tend to be hardier because they've been around different varieties or anything like that? Is there anything?
No, again, I think with that, hardiness probably comes from how they're treated. So Marahiro will expose fish to cold a lot more, a lot less heating. So there's an element there that kind of toughens them up. But then they're ultimately, while they're on his farm, they're not exposed to anything other than what's on that farm and within those ponds. And that's where it comes. The minute they get to us, even then, we're keeping breeders isolated. obviously we do the mixing in a controlled way, so we've got traceability still. That's really important stuff.
Yeah.
Because if shit kicks off, I want to be able to pinpoint exactly where it's kicked off,
Yeah.
so I can follow the chain back and not repeat that process ever again.
Mm-hmm.
That's why we do it in a control. In an ideal world, you kind of bring everything in, throw it all in one pond, and just let it expose the fuck out of each other.
Yeah.
It's just no good for anything, and it probably actually create too much stress and some serious issues.
Yeah.
Albeit possibly bacterial or something like that wasn't there to begin with. So yeah, it's interesting. Mixing fish is good fun, but like I say, in some cases, really, you got to know. It's not so much of a concern for hobbyist you guys when you're buying them, but like I say, when they come to us, absolutely crucial that I know, because sometimes they can go like the sleeping sickness stuff. We can mix the fish, and all of a sudden you don't quite. You get a bit of a lull in the fish, and then you deal with that, but you can't be tricked. You can't be fooled into believing that is it.
Yeah. Yeah.
You've got to really push it, and that happened with this year's Otsuka fish, to be honest, because he's one of the prime candidates of this. So we got them first early doors. I'm straight on them early doors, got them to rot, and I thought, oh god, they didn't go too bad, but I just knew it wasn't there. And it wasn't actually until I upped the feed in and the water went through a bit of a bad lull. Just as I took the feed in a bit too far, I literally saw the water go off. Within days of that, it induced enough stress and really got them going. And they went for it then. I mean, Christ almighty, you see the speed at which it happens and how the fish behave. Most people would shit a brick seeing it, honestly, because it's just insane. And then we get man, and you mentioned Marihiro, even strange things there. In all the year, I've noticed Marihiro's fish are actually quite prone to carp pox.
Really?
We do see when them cooler waters hit, his fish throwing it quite a lot. And your first time you see it, you sort of think, oh, okay. Then the next time and the next time, you think, oh no, that's no coincidence.
Yeah, yeah. Is it tend to be younger fish with that then, or is that into Nissan?
No, but I've seen it across the board, and then even more. As soon as it's sort of one of them things when your iTunes into it, then you're at this fish house, then you start really, and it's like, I see.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Mm.
No, I think people don't maybe pay it as much, attention as what sometimes you should, I guess, and be cautious about it. But like you said, maybe on a hobbyist level, it's not something to really, spend the night up worrying about.
No, it's not. It's not. And Marcus there asking, once seeds are recovered, do the fish carry it for life? So yeah, they've built up the immunity to it. Then at that point, that's what it is. It's exposing them so they can build the immunity, so it's never going to bother them again. And even if they were exposed, you might get very, very mild symptoms, but not to the extent that you would when they first encounter it.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of when you go to a nursery and you send your kids in for chicken pox parties and stuff like that, don't you? So it kind of reminds me like that. So I guess if you've had a fish that's been exposed to it at a younger age, and then when it gets to Sansai and it's not having to go through all them different
again,
things
it's
in the water.
that because they do recover quickly. So I've seen older fish get hit with this though, and it knocks them for 6.
Yeah.
Just as it would with a virus in older people, in older fish, my God, it hits them for 6.
Yeah.
So really best to get that exposure up early doors.
Yeah. So next question, Tancho spots. Do they always burn out when they get to Yonsai?
No, the thing people need to be aware of with this is Benny there's elasticity in Benny. That's one thing we're looking for in a good kohaku. It's some elasticity in the Benny when it's young, to know that when it grows, it can stretch like that. But then you've also got to be aware at some point, then it's also going to contract. Yeah, that is the process over the growth. It's stretching, it's contracting. That's how Benny moves. So the thing you've got with a Tancho is you can't actually see what's happened or what the quality of the Benny is on the body. Would be, because there is none.
Yeah.
So you're basing it of that on the head. So what you can be absolutely assured of, mainly on the head bit, because where that colour is, that's going to contract. Yeah, that colour contracts more than it stretches. So with that in mind, when you're looking at a toe size, say 25 cm, for example, your issue there is that if that's a perfect spot on the head, you know, exactly how you want it, more than likely in this site, it's not going to be perfect, especially if it has a good growth burst. It's the slightly oversized spots more so you want to be looking at because that is going to contract. And the issue is as well, again, a numbers thing, even these perfect round spotters, they can contract. It can also misshape the spots.
Yeah, I've seen them go from like that to like that.
Yeah, honestly, it's a real game, Joe. Real game.
Yeah. So do you feed, if you had a pond full of Tancho kohaku, what colour food ratio are you feeding? Because the other thing as well is to prevent secondary and other bits and bobs as well, I guess.
Yeah. Crafty's in the house. Crafty, if you're watching, mate, and you're not doing it, if you want to come on, drop us a thumbs up, and Joe will send the link over.
Yeah, I'll send it. Yeah.
So, sorry, what was that bit, Joe? About
colour food ratio. If you had a pond full of Tancho kohaku, how much are you putting in there with growth food? Are you putting any in?
Yeah, I'd just treat them as kohaku. I'd keep it on the same ratio.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, absolutely. You need it. Same as any Benny. You've got to be getting the colour food into them to keep the colour progressing for sure. But yeah, I'd go with the same kind of ratio or whatever I'm doing with the rest of the pond. I wouldn't particularly treat them any differently, to be fair.
Yeah.
Just with that, you've just got to be. It's the movement you've got to be aware of. Plus, obviously, you can't. If you had Benny on the body, it would help you better predict the head. What would happen on the head?
Yeah.
You've just not got it. You've all the tells that I would use in a Tosai kohaku, you've then not got. So you've got no read left on them. That's really part of the problem. And you're just gauging it on that spot. That's why the things are so bloody volatile.
Tancho showers are the best as well, aren't they? Because they can cover a lot of sins on that Tancho spot.
Yeah. Same as we shower generally, to be fair. Can cover a lot with that sumi. But yeah, it's interesting stuff. Raising Tanchos is no fun.
Yeah. That's one thing I hadn't seen, a pond full of Tanchos at Koi Wholesale.
No, well, you're probably just a bit late on that one, mate. Normally, I've struggled this year, but I've normally got a pond full of some description. So
we've definitely seen some good ones.
I did actually come across. I had a net of Tancho Goshki yesterday. Surprised me actually. It was amongst my Kano Goshkis. I just didn't know they were all in there to that extent. So they actually went straight out to a dealer. They didn't hang about.
Yeah, fair enough. One of the things raised last night we were asked about is you might have been asked this before, so just tell me if you have oyster shells. Yes, no. Is it for you? Is it something you'd consider?
No, it depends on what you're doing. Obviously, they're a great acid mop. That's how I describe oyster. A lot of people mistake them as a buffer. They're not a buffer. They're an acid mop. They're soaking up that free acid in the water, which helps obviously stop KH from burning out. And keeps then your pH more stable. So there you go. Send him a link over.
Send him on WhatsApp, yeah.
We will get round to your questions, folks, as well at some point. So that's what it is. Same as like Lithaqua. I think Lithaqua has actually got the capability to raise pH a little bit, however, but with shells, with the volume, you might get a slight lift, but it's not going to last long. And it's the issue is it's the quantity of it you need for it to actually do the job. Yeah, a lot of people's going like putting a bag in the filter. It's just going to do naff all.
Yeah.
When breeders are using these, they're using full chambers that are 2 meters deep, full of oyster shells, and obviously they don't last that long. You know, they typically used to change them sort of every 6 months, from what I'm led to believe. Absolutely crazy. So yeah, buffers I'm all for. It's just using it right. It's almost like, you know, when people mention salt, salt is an essential thing at times. A buffer is a really good, or an acid mop is a good idea. You've just got to use it properly.
Yeah. It's not something I've ever considered, but I know a lot of people keep them in backy showers as well, just and leave them in there.
They're not well suited for modern day filtration systems.
Yeah.
That's a real fact. As the footprint shrunk, you can't have someone going, "Oh yeah, you need 200 kilos of oyster shell in there."
Yeah.
Where are you going to put it?
No, that's
It's just
true.
not there, is it? You know,
Yeah.
we're coming from days where you had a multi-bay filter and you're absolutely, you know, cramming it all in there, and you had loads of space and all your different setups. You'd have your bio chamber, your mechanical bits, another chamber for some shells and stuff. That's not there anymore. You know, where are you going to cram them in a Nexus?
Yeah, no, it's true.
So it's weird how it's those kind of shifts in that behavior that can really alter everything else.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think we've got Crafty in the background. I think he's just adjusting his camera. So
Adjusting his camera, trying to hide his face.
I'll ask you another question whilst he gets ready. Oh, I think is he ready? We'll see. See if we can bring him in.
I think I'm ready.
Alan, buddy, how you doing?
Try and find the best
good,
layout.
you?
There we go.
I'll be trying to get that light out, man, because I'm still working away, as you can tell.
But there we are. So we've one of my other questions then for you chip in as well, Crafty, I guess. Ricky, Crafty, do you find more enjoyment now out of bringing over Sakai Dainichi fish and kind of showing people the results of them bigger breeders, or have you enjoyed more kind of showing people what's possible with some smaller breeders like Takano, other breeders like that, some smaller breeders?
Good question.
For me, I mean, it varies on the type of people that you come, because I think that Dainichi, Sakai, etc., they carry a little bit more of a price tag, and quite rightly so. So you tend to find people coming into purchase have already got some sort of info on what it is that they're trying to achieve in their ponds. So, you know, I would say that they've done a lot of research, seen a lot of this type of thing on YouTube. And they're the people that tend to spend a little bit more on their tozai for better quality fish, because they have a better understanding of what the genetics are and what it is that they're invested into, in my personal opinion. I get as much enjoyment out of selling, you know, a small little 22 pound, 15 centimetre tozai to somebody that is only just coming into the hobby, to what I do, you know, selling someone that is ranking up, so to speak, you know, and investing a little bit more heavily into, you know, a tozai 25 cm, nice and young, and appreciating what it is that they're looking at, you know, and the standard of the fish, it all varies based on their price point, but ultimately it's going to the people that, you know, are at different levels, in my opinion.
For me with this, I often take into consideration the breeders. We've got a creeper.
It's Lionel Messi.
So I'm looking at, sometimes you can get, so when you're meeting the guys, you can get sucked into the experience a little bit. And I for years have I steered away from those big guys because of, you didn't get that same experience when you was buying. And it's harder to build up. To be fair, when you're not at the level that, look at it now, there's all aspects I look at it from the business side. It's getting the deals done at those big farms to get the fish they're just huge deals. So you've really got to be able to know you can make that work in order to commit to it. So like with Dainichi, for example, I stayed away from Dainichi because for me, it's not very personable to begin with, whereas you can build that rapport and with the smaller breeders and gain more access to probably, you know, certain bits of stock when you need it. So that was always a big part. But then, looking at Dainichi, it was kind of like, well, do I want Dainichi fish if I can't afford to buy proper Dainichi fish? You know, and get the right stuff. And that's kind of where the auction bit came from, because when I'd figured out through some help that was where they're generally putting the best fish, it's like, even in them auctions, what do you want to do? Do you want to, you know, just be buying in the auction looking for the ones that go for low prices, or do you actually want to be competing to buy the proper fish at the auctions? And when I was at that point, that's when it became something. Still not very personable. The fact of the matter is, they don't really give a shit. You're just another name on a spreadsheet coming through to them guys. But when you then see the difference in them fish, I probably convinced myself for quite a while that there wasn't. I'm kind of kidding myself, they're not really worth all the money going for these bigger things, all the rest of it. But now I've done it, and across the board, across Sakai, Dainichi, Momotaro, yeah, it's hard to go back now at that point, to be honest with you. It's frustration from a personal sort of side of it. Again, you can't build that same rapport up, but the fish are just undeniable.
Yeah.
So more and more now I'm in the kind of later parts of the growing season as well, and I'm really starting to see stuff come to fruition. You just cannot deny the quality of these bloodlines, and that's something. Ultimately, it's all about the fish. There's some other gems out there, and they are great when you unearth them, i.e. Tucano. I mean, that's a guy there who you've got all the heart of that small guy, and he is kicking on a serious level.
Yeah.
We see that from his All Japan wins. The guy's a serious player. But there's not actually that many of them out there, and that's how I gauge. That's how I gauge it. Tucano's smaller in size than, say, Terrazzo. You probably actually see him year to year on the highest stage, the top 3 Japan shows, winning more prizes than Terrazzo. That's a breeder that gets chased, got quite a big name, gets chased. I gauge them by how they're performing on that scene, to be honest.
Do you think that's where there's like a bit of a gap in Japan now for, say, like a Narita, and how maybe they're selling more batches of younger Tosai from Sakai that they've bought on and that kind of stuff? Like, is it the middle ground between?
I've just seen what Crafty was smirking off this beard off. Yeah, mine's had a trim. Let me send out. If I knew we were having a competition, mate, I'd have kept going.
But back to the question: do you think that's like Narita is and them type of folks over there that maybe buying younger fish in batches and then selling them at younger Tosai and keeping the best ones? It's kind of similar model to Koi Wholesale, but in Japan, is that middle ground between going directly to a Sakai? You get a little bit more from a Narita, I guess.
No, but it's getting hold of this stuff. Directly at Sakai, it's hard work because there's just not enough of it to go around. But these batches of stuff, it's how a lot of all the big Japanese dealers work. It's where a lot of it's stuff from. There's just so much quality passes through, and the breeders are. You got to remember, when these guys are doing selections, they're working to a very certain criteria that they're looking for. The stuff does slip through. You see the caliber, and it's also that it's the stuff that what market does it suit. Just because it doesn't suit their eye and their selection criteria doesn't mean, because this is the difference as well. You see a huge difference in a fish, and Crafty will see this when me and Alan are talking. There's a huge difference in the criteria for a UK show than what there is a Japanese one.
Yeah.
So you can have something that's rejected because they might see no show potential in it. It comes over here, it blossoms a bit, it ticks the boxes for over here, and all of a sudden you've got a UK show winner. I often see Japanese show winners doing naff all over here when they come to the UK. Crazy one. Good one for customers, that Crafty especially.
100%, mate. Good article in the latest episode of Koi Talk as well.
Which one?
With regards to Jazz and what she puts down with regards to the show scene. I think she paints the picture between Japan and UK quite well, actually. The differences between, the Japanese being a professional show sort of circuit with regards to the breeders doing a lot of the work for publicity, and over here it's more about earning a rosette, and hobbyists taking the credit rather than the breeder.
Yeah, big time.
Yeah.
Big time. But
and that's where the differences come in, isn't it?
The eye is just so much different. It really is.
But I think it's an interesting one, because I still like the fairy tale thing where you can go to Japan and build a relationship with a breeder and get fantastic results. Like, for me, I would 100% buy into growing on more Tucano fish next year over Sakai, for example. I quite like that fairy tale story, and I don't know where people are at in the hobby, whether or not they're still chasing the name. And I guess it's nice to hear it from both of your point of view, because you got different perspectives.
actually see it like when there's a lot more interest in the market at the minute for growing on ponds. So I'm getting a lot more customers coming in with growing on ponds, looking to pick up 10, 15 tozai, irrespective of where they come from, just to learn and develop their knowledge on what's actually happening, which is, I think that's something that's probably taken off for the last 8 to 10 months after there's been a lot of discussion about what actually, in fact, I could say that Lee Hadfield probably can be, an ambassador towards that because he's actually shown what he can achieve. And I see people mimicking that now, and that's off to them. I really, really, really think that people should do that, irrespective, because when it comes to your main pond and having your main pieces in there, you're going to be selecting out the ones that you get the most value from, watching them grow out, and understanding the shifts that you see in Benny and Sumi development and even body development, because the difference between a 15 cm and a 40 cm fish is huge, and you can achieve that in a growing season if you do it properly,
Yeah, I agree, mate. I think it's massive, the one. But it's just knowing, actually understanding what you're getting out of the fish, because this is where knowledge of bloodlines and lineages and even particular parent sets come in, because it can just shape. If you know what you like in a fish, that's when you can really target in and go, I want this, I need to get it from there. And it can just be a certain trait and characteristic that you like in it, i.e. the Sakai body actually isn't for everyone. There's sort of older tasting koi that were more used to the Matsunosuke sort of style of body, where they're a lot more slender. So all of a sudden, these ones that have got, more weight around the shoulders than you could ever possibly imagined probably 20 years ago, just aren't cutting it. Some of the Japanese taste for that power body is at the point where the fish look slightly short-bodied. They're that powerful. But that works in Japan. I know for a fact that fish would just get absolutely dismissed, that body style over here, for sure. And then it's just knowing like NND's Sankey, that's another really great lineage. And when you get it, when you understand that Sumi, you understand that that's the lineage. If you like to see some development in a fish, have real quality, be in for a bit of a ride, take a gamble, also get good value for money, but then with also huge jumbo potential, boom, it's probably the first place I'm taking you.
Well, to echo that, Rick, with those NND show we've got in our main pond down here, they are probably, in my opinion, for me, the smaller one that we've got holds a lot more quality, but I just enjoy watching them the whole time, even over the big yellow monkey that we've got here.
Yeah.
So there's another. I know that it's not Dainichi, but it's got the volume and the power. So at a 60 cm fish, it looks bigger than what it is just because of the volume that it carries, and it's so nice to see someone outside of Sakai Dainichi that are creating that big powerhouse. So and it suits the fish.
That NND shower at the minute, a lot of people still, so that obviously lineage started off as the Umo shower back in the day. Now that's just not, they've still kind of got that. He always had a strong Kindai style, and that come from the parent fish. Umo's original pairing was a Takeda big female shower that was a really strong Kindai, that kind of stripped back phenomenal thing with a beast of a body, paired with a Dainichi male back then. I think he used a Nogami shower as well, to be honest, but the main pairing was that Takeda with Dainichi. But that lineage now that's not the main operation there. I think they have a style of shower in their head that they like, and that influences the parent selection. But that actual lineage of NND shower at the minute is driven by a Dainichi female that they got, which is the one very similar in style to my Kindai. It's got that jackhammer head, really is, and it just got skin on another level and body volume on another level. And that right there is the influence of that lineage. So it's
you can see the Dainichi in the bloodline, actually.
Yeah.
You can see it's there.
It's just that influence, but there again, you can go. So knowing what you want, this is when you know. So right, Dainichi's kind of out price budget wise, but I want something with those big characteristics, that kind of Kindai style. There we go. There's the one. Evening, Alan.
Evening out.
So yeah, that's where that knowledge and knowing of what's going on can really work.
To me,
all the variables.
To me, the big thing with a Sankey in my mind should be quite delicate and feminine. And when I think of a shower, I think of powerful and dark and masculine. And I don't know why that is. It's just a perception I've got in my head that a Sankey should have quite, flowery pattern. And so if a Sankey ain't got the body, I'm not as fussed about it. Whereas a shower, I think, has to be monstrous and it should have a big lightning strike down its head and all these other things. So I don't know whether that's like
and all for 200 quid, Joe.
And all for 200 quid, yeah.
and but 15 of them to grow on.
But no, that's kind of my perception on it, and I don't know whether that's more of like a I don't know what it is, but to me, there's a feminine, masculine thing to it, and I don't know.
I can hear my two kids going wild in kitchen. Absolutely, I'm on edge. I
can't wait to see them come in covered in flour, mate. You're going to be in so much trouble.
Brilliant. I suppose we look at a few questions, because you get me talking about bloodlines and all that shit. I won't shut up all night.
I've started a few comments if you want to have a look.
But no, it is seriously one worth getting your head, because it can just help you pinpoint where best to kind of utilize your money when you're looking for something, and then you get the further understanding of trying it. When you understand the lineage, you can also then potentially start spotting bargains amongst them when you refine your eye to it. We'll start at the top, I suppose. Which breeds of Shiro utsuri would you recommend, please, if you don't want red to come out in them when feeding colour food? Thank you. Okay, Kevin. It's a good question. If you're feeding colour food, you're always going to run the risk of that with Shiro. There are lineages more sensitive to it, for sure. But this is really case by case. I can point out, Omasako is a good lineage, but when you're battering them with colour food, there's way back in that history, there's a big shower. So there's always that chance of it. NNDDK have been really good in general. But again, if you're hitting them with colour food, there's a chance that is that slight compromise. But also it depends on the quality of the colour food as well. Some colour enhancers really do just throw secondary crazy. I mean, like insanely quick in fish. When it's really high quality cultured spirulina, like you'll get in Saki Akari colour, then at that point you reduce that risk massively. And I can say I've safely fed mixed ponds with that colour food various times now, and not had cases where it's been throwing crazy amounts of secondary heat that I wasn't really expecting. But with some foods, it's just wild. Really is. What about you, Crafty? You developed a preference for a Shiro yet?
Oh, I'm a Sacco every day, mate. No, we got a decent pond full here, mate, and probably the best one has gone, but I see them every day, mate, and they look better every day. As they get bigger, they just look more impressive.
Yeah.
But yeah, for me, Omasako is the go-to for me.
Yeah. What about you, Joe?
I tell you what, there was one in one of the Narita auctions, I think, just before the All Japan show last year, or earlier this year, I can't remember. And it was one that Yugenji put up, and it was insane, like unbelievable. And I thought, wow, I've never seen one that good. And I almost, I dare to say I've not seen one as good as that on Masako that's been available for sale in an auction format. So I'm interested to learn more about Yugenji and what they're doing with Shiro, because I know that the lineage will be similar, but I mean, that's just something I'm guessing at, really.
Actually not, Joe. I can obviously enlighten you on that one. Be rude not to. Their lineage is actually really quite unique. I don't know if they've tinkered with it a lot. I would say from the style of the fish, doesn't look like they have. But that lineage originates from Yamanaka Oya, which Yamanaka Oya is in Yamakoshi. He's literally 10 minutes down the road. I'd say down the road, down a very fuck off big mountain. He's there, but yeah, so that's it. And Yamanaka Oya is one of the oldest established bloodlines of Shiro utsuri in Niigata. Probably putting in one of the oldest, most established lineages of Shiro utsuri in Japan, to be fair. But prior to the Chuetsu earthquake, that was the main foundation of Yugenji Shiro utsuri. Obviously, from that point, that they'll have kind of evolved and stabilized that with their own parent fish. But that was the footprint of it. Up to that point, there was no Omasako blood in it. Very, very few lineages can actually say that, and I would hazard a guess, looking at them, that they've avoided doing that still, because the body style is completely different to that of Omasako. They lack a little bit of power, probably, is what I'd say. In comparison, and probably end growth wise, but yeah, the Yamanaka Oya one is probably one no one's really heard of. But
no,
he every year he has got a pond of Shiros that hard to walk away from. To be fair,
it looks like the Sumi is maybe a bit more predictable with his younger ones. Is that right in saying? Yeah,
it is very much so. It doesn't change a lot, and what you'll tend to get is you'll get very few Yugenji Shiros that actually kind of just develop masses of Sumi. So I'd be quite reluctant when you see one there with that kind of underlying grey Sumi. I'd be quite reluctant to go for something like that.
Yeah, versus Omasako, where you would.
Yeah, especially when it's that kind of Kage effect as well. That'd be quite worried about.
Yeah, that's interesting.
I would. How's things at Shopcrafty anyway?
They're busy, but not as busy as I'd like. I think after the
Kind of sound like me now.
No, well, no, I'm being totally honest. I'd like to see a few more. We're getting a footfall through, but it's summer holidays and we're a bit more of a zoo than what we are a dealer at the minute. But
yeah,
still got a good enough amount of trade going out. But we're at that point in the season where people have filled their ponds up, I think, and only the odd ones are coming through now.
Yeah,
and spending big money, but you know, they're still here to come and see. I've seen there's a message by Sam in there. I've got a couple of nice Benigoi around 40 cm. If you want to drop me a DM, I'll send you a couple of videos over.
Hey, brutal, this kid, isn't he? Absolutely brutal. Open door and he's in there.
This is a good question, actually, when you're talking about Benigoi. Can you get a finished article Benigoi at 40 cm, or have they still got some development to do?
You can get them with deep red, but you don't want it finished at 40 cm. You know, you still want some capacity in the colour. The big thing to look for, really important, is that the heads are deeper colour than the body. The best, most simple bit of advice I can give you, because generally most of the time, it's so long as you can see some pigment cells in the body, you know there's going to be some levelling up at some point to happen, and that's what you want.
And they get big quick anyway, don't they?
Exactly. So yeah, you don't want 40 cm. You don't really want anything finished unless you're looking at it for a show and you not want a massive future in it. To be fair, but yeah, good question. And yeah, no shimmies. Just good luck with that one, Sam. To be honest with you, because that with Benny, the issue is as well they're just prone to it because that type of Benny that a good Benigoi has is more prone to shimmies and it's got a full body of it. So yeah, quite tricky with it, to be honest.
Yeah.
One for you here, Crafty, top salesman. Here we go. I'm going to sit back and have a drink.
Yeah, in my opinion, well, I'm quite an ambassador for EA stuff anyway. I think that's no secret. But with what you get and what it achieves, and the simplicity of being able to clean and having the ability to go gravity or pump fed, whether it's with a UV or an auto system, there's so much available on the market. It really does give you the best filter for smaller ponds on the market at the price point. It's worth every penny, in my opinion. Up to 10,000 litres, you can't go wrong.
Yeah, I've got one chugging away gravity fed on a 1,200 gallon pond, and I do love the little thing. It's great.
They work so well.
They're not the filter if you're looking to dump loads of food in. Let's be clear about that. There's just not the capacity in them. But if you think in general pond, I do prefer the gravity setup on them to pump. I speak from experience when I say that, because once upon a time, I think I had 17 pump-fed Easy Pods. And I know you've got a few, Crafty, haven't you?
I think we're currently on 68 of them.
Yeah, they weren't the auto ones back then, and I just found cleaning was actually waiting for it to fill up, drain off, do the rounds. Actually took a really, really long amount of time.
But if you've only got one pond and you're not running a business off it, you know, they do well. Autos are a great bit of kit. Manual clean button as and when you feel like it, but you can, on the auto, you set them to clean at set periods, rather than what happens on the auto kits with the Nexus 220s, 320s, etc. is it monitors water levels, but it doesn't do that on the Easy Pods. It works differently. But yeah, in my opinion, if you've got the money, go for that over a pressure filter that a lot of people will potentially try and sell you.
Absolutely. Outperform it heaps. Next one. Love this question. Some of the old timers in my koi club said that colour food is for Tosai and maybe Nisai, but not needed. After that, your thoughts? I need a bullshit alert, don't I? Big button after press. This is not, you know, in raising top koi, this colour food is the biggest tool we have in our arsenal. You've got to use it right. Don't get me wrong. You're not completely blitzing them with this 12 months of the year. That's not what's happening. But you have to understand that developing colour to its pinnacle, to its peak, which needs to happen at some point. If you're raising a fish, it's no good keeping that colour, you know, from hitting its peak for all of its life, which became quite an obsession for a time. You know, keep the belly soft for how fucking long? Because what you end up with is a fish that's old. Looks old, but his Benny looks like he's 2 years old. It's just fucked up when you see it. It really is. So when all that come about, I'm just like thinking, this is crazy. And I started seeing it around koi shows, fish that were like 5, 6, 7 years old, and it don't look right. It don't compute, because you've got to bring that colour to its peak at some point. And honestly, doing this naturally is almost impossible. When you're talking single, you know, kohaku, where it's all about the Benny, a little bit probably easier. But when you're talking more than one colour, bringing everything together at the same point, my God, it's hard. But when you see that, I've not got a picture to hand. When you see that, they're like the fish we have in Koi Talk magazines, that Benny that's that uniform, absolutely intense, solid colour. Yeah, there we go. Like the porno fish, innit? You don't get that
better
without
than a woman with a baps out, mate, isn't
it? you just don't get it. You really don't get it. And Joe Crafter, you've seen this. I think it's one thing, this raising and the way I do it is one thing that makes my fish stand out an absolute mile. When I say stand out, they're no different to fish that's been raised properly in Japan, but that's been my obsession. Yeah. And they have to be raised to that level in order for me to feel like the job's been done properly. And that's what it is.
But you also got the point, mate, where, you know, we feed sake. You know, you can see the difference in the dealers that don't.
Yeah.
Simple, because you are what you eat, irrespective of what age they are here, because we've got fish of Yonsei here. They need a proper diet to don't turn fat, and they hold their body mass, and it, you know, it also services your filters better. Yeah. So, you know, I don't agree with anything that has just been put in that statement. My thoughts are, you are what you eat, make from that what you can.
Yeah, there's just so much work, and again, another massive part to this. It's not just colour food. UV is massively misunderstood, not understood, not talked about enough. You know, UV penetrate, and this is getting it right is what's important. I.e., not getting enough or even getting too much. There's a sweet spot, because too much will quickly burn your Benny out, more so than colour food. You know, when you've got that crystal clear water in a pond that's out there in sort of full sun all day, there's nothing protecting them from that UV that's going to cut through that water. That is what will burn colour out faster than the use of colour food. So there's finding that line between all that stuff.
And what about for those people that have got roofs over their ponds, Rick, or polycarbs? You know, what damage does that sort of do to the likes of Benny as well?
It's the softening up. This is why I mentioned polycarb, to be honest. I think that's a delivery man at door now. Brilliant. Just get it, kids. Harry, I'll see you to him. Yeah, so that's what I've seen. The first time I saw it it's the same effect they get from people I've seen running RO and really, really, really soft water all the time, where the colour never seems to actually spread into the scale. It's almost like it's reversing. It's not spreading properly like it needs to. And I've seen that same effect with polycarb, because obviously, although you're letting daylight through, it's cutting UV transmission right down, and not getting that UV is ultimately then what's leading. I never forget seeing a pond when the whole thing was enclosed with polycarb. The minute I saw it, that's the first thing I picked up on.
Yeah,
it's like, shit, that colour's soft.
Yeah,
you know, which is all right for so long, but at some point you've got to start getting that colour progressing. And that's the only thing, because he wasn't running RO or anything like that, just perfectly normal water. That's, to me, where I saw it. Don't get me wrong, you're running that water, you can then control it with a colour food, bring it round, but yeah, that colour food is just massive.
I'm just going to plug, there's a question here, sounds like an article for Koi Talk. I have actually got an article on coloration in the next, in November. So keep your eyes out. Yeah, the interesting part for me was, you know, we spoke last time about the black goldfish that if you put them in shallow water, they all turn black. They're from grey to black. It's not just Benny that's affected by UV. And Pete, that's a misconception. One thing that I think, I put a shade over my pond, and I brought a Sansai fish over from Japan last year. It would never swim around the top of the water until I put the shade up. The behavior of the fish totally changed because they were getting shade. So, you know, sometimes, you know, it makes a massive difference. And I think it keeps the skin looking younger. If you're not getting a massive amount of penetration, it's finding the right balance, because none will make the skin look really old, no UV. But if you have loads, it'll make it look old as well. So you got to find
you can draw so many comparables just to people. Look what happens to these old dudes and old chicks that are there. That's it in Benidorm. Looks like shriveled up old prunes at 30 years old.
Yeah.
It's very true. It's no different. It's no different.
Sounds lovely.
You what, mate?
Sounds lovely, that. Shriveled up old prawn. That on a deck chair.
So I suppose while we're on this topic, I see a question from Jeff. Do you use Hikari Deep Red or the whitening food? Any pros and cons? The Deep Red, honestly, I sort of see no need for. If you need that short-term boost for a competition, but you've already got to have sort of done some level of legwork behind it, it's no good taking one from, you know, it's the build-up and you use the Deep Red to put the finishing touch on it. And then the whitening food I have used, I think the Saki Pure White is phenomenal. It just, again, lives up to the whole Hikari brand of delivering on what they say it's going to do with the product. And I've just been every time I've used that now, literally I can time it 2 to 3 weeks is the sweet spot when you'll really start seeing a massive visual result, to be honest. And then from there, you're just going to get better and better.
To be fair, though, I'd love to see what Yoshinoda here at Series with that Deep Red would do. Like, do you think they'd just, like, evaporate and not exist anymore? Like, can they get any more redder?
Fact is that they just don't need it.
Yeah.
Really don't. It's you know, I prefer to work on, but like I say, real finishing touches. It's a real specialist product, the Deep Red, and yeah, I don't think it's one for Mo. And let's face it, the price of the shit is crazy.
I wonder what it'd do to like an Asagi or something like that. That Deep Red. Do you reckon Benny would just explode on it or something like that?
Done, mate. Done.
No?
I've tried it. Not the Deep Red, just colour food in general. Doesn't actually have that much of an impact. It improves what's there, but it doesn't force it up any sooner.
Right.
That's where you're naturally just working against age, temperature, things like that. Funnily enough, I mean, the Oya Asagi is, again, temperature seems to be the biggest influencer on that Benny of the Asagas as it stands, because the ones I'm raising this side to Sansai and Crafty, actually, that one at the shop, you still got it?
I've got 2.
How's the Benny looking on bellies now? Because I'm guessing possibly coming a bit stronger in your pond.
Yeah, so the bigger one is starting to show more and more weekly.
Yeah.
The smaller one, which is the better quality fish,
Yeah.
that is still yet to show. There is a little bit there, but there's nothing that says, look at me, I've got loads.
Yeah, but there's a year's age difference between the two, isn't there?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, you know,
you've got that age maturity.
It's a constant conversation piece. People don't understand a saggy.
Yeah,
you know,
true.
And it's a constant conversation piece.
True.
But yeah, the older one is developing more and more weekly.
Yeah. So I watched
low since I had it.
That one you had, that older one. I watched that go from all summer not really having a lot to spending all winter going, oh my god, it's coming, it's really looking good, it's really coming.
Then dropping off.
You buying it, and obviously it's hopefully progressed from there.
Yeah,
the Nisai I selected them because a lot of them was all showing really good development Benny wise. Summer's hit, growth's come again, and it's just all gone.
Yeah, so we had a tank full of the smaller tozai from Oyster from you guys, and when I turned up here at the end of Feb, there was absolutely zero Benny on 99% of the fish.
Yeah.
I've since moved them outside, and my God, they have just come on leaps and bounds.
Yeah.
You know,
all that patience, mate, in it. And that's the biggest thing, honestly. It's the biggest skill in koi keeping. If you can learn to be patient, laughing.
Yeah, totally, mate. And that's one of the best breeds or varieties for me to actually watch development.
Yeah,
because it really shows and it's noticeable, the difference.
Yeah, absolutely. Just seen one there. Do you try to influence colour with natural food, shrimp, etc.? If you want to make your Benny look like shit, false, terrible, and throw secondary, get as much shrimp as you can, throw it in there in the buckets, and that is exactly the effect you will create. It's just not the same effect as natural, pure cultured spirulina at all. I never forget, right? This happened where where the office is sat at Koi Wholesale at the minute. I usually have to have my first pond was where that is now sat in a little handyman greenhouse. And I never forget this terrazzo kohaku that I bought. One of the dearer fish I'd bought at times. And big thing with terrazzo is they've got this lovely soft, it's intense, but there's a softness to this Benny. And I can't remember what I was feeding at the time, but this brand come out called Koi Fudu. There might be a few tuned in who remember it. And it's just the same as every other fucking new koi food that crops up every other week. This guy comes in singing its praise, and I was a bit more gullible back then, to be fair. So I'm like, yeah, I'll try it. Start throwing it in. Within 2 weeks, this Benny, honestly, it looked like it had neon bulbs under its skin. It looked shocking. It was blushing yellow all over its Shiro. And this Benny just looks so false and hideous. And the ingredients in it straight away, just took one look and went, there we go. Just shocking, really shocking.
Yeah, I luckily I took mine off colour food as soon as I saw secondary coming on 90% of them, and it's disappeared. But yeah, I won't be making that mistake again. I can easily lose quite a bit of money with that.
Rich has been trying to bait me with this one ever since Monday night. We don't discuss football on this channel, Richard. You know that unless we're giving Joe or Chris an absolute drumming, we don't discuss it, mate.
I'm not a football fan anymore, to be honest. I've given it up.
It's probably easier, isn't it?
I'm going on loan to rugby, just like every other Leeds player going on loan. So.
Let's see what I've missed, guys. Have you been filtering them all out still, Joe?
Yeah, pretty much.
Looking over comments there.
Do you the super white food? You use it only as super white. You don't mix it with anything. Just a full diet.
Only as mixing. It's just counterintuitive to what it's trying to do.
Yeah.
Interestingly, with that one, I read because it's so highly digestible, you can actually use that instead of wheat germ. So if you're feeling particularly flush, you can fuck the wheat germ off and just use that, but you're going to have to be feeling flush, to be fair.
I'm going to say it's not cheap.
But the price tag that comes on that white food, mate, is insane.
What's it at minute?
I think it's 200 quid, 180 quid, something like that for like.
Yeah,
it's shit.
Wow.
Shit amount of money. That's why it don't move off the shelf very quick.
No. Even I'm going to say it that I just don't see the purpose of it for people.
No, no. I think it's aimed at those show folk, mate, for a quick diet, over a set period of a few weeks. Those people that are.
The problem is, though, it's not even worth spending, because with people with eyesight like Alan's, it's just not the food, is it?
Yeah, mate, it's proper and all, mate. He needs bino vision now, mate. It's the way his wrinkles now have pushed the skin over his eyes like that. It's what happens when you get old, Al.
It's always
I will expect a phone call, mate. But I'm looking.
When he's not here to defend himself, it's always best. Joe, find us one more question to it, Joe, before we go.
Got any Kage Shiro coming in anytime soon?
I have, mate. Actually, I was fishing around in that pond the other day. I've got one piece I've really got my eye on.
All right, so you're not selling that one to me then?
Probably not.
I might have it.
Exactly.
Not again. Honestly. Right.
He pays better prices than you, Joe. That's the problem.
Yeah. Have you ever used Saki Balance R? Saw a video of Sakai. He mentioned he used it. Wondered if what the benefit is over normal balance.
So Saki R is sort of when you're bringing your koi out of an illness. Basically, it's got all the nutrients to help bring them on health wise. There's nothing more to add, in my opinion, from that. But it's a specialist diet and not something you should be feeding all the time.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one. I just want to also add to that bit that never believe a word a breeder says when they're stood there with Mr. whoever from Ikari saying, yes, I use this fish food all the time. Never, ever believe it. They are absolute sellouts with that stuff.
No, that's true, to be fair. Yeah, you do see a lot of flags going around in Japan, don't you? And then you see a lot of...
I don't see it too much. Honestly, you'll have like fish houses. I'm not even going to mention which one it is. He's such a big... He's been all over like JPD's Facebook page and all the rest of it. It's got all the banners in there, absolutely everything. And you walk in and what is it you feed? And he walks over to the buckets where there's no bags and it's Ikari.
Yeah.
Absolute crack up. There we go, folks. Thank you very much for everyone who's joined us. Crafty, thanks for giving us 10 minutes, mate. I see you're there working hard again, pal.
Yeah, another late one, mate.
Yeah, so we're going to have a chat about these Kage Shiros tomorrow then.
Yeah, let's do it.
Top man.
Brilliant. Honestly, I've been waiting for anyone that's not caught on. I've been after this Kage Shiro from Ricky from ages. And Crafty comes round, buys it from Ricky. And I've been waiting for these toe size been growing on. And Crafty's taking all them as well. So,
well, I'll always sell you one, Joe. It's not a problem, mate. I'm a dealer.
He'll even do you a good deal, Joe. I
would. And I would as well. I'd look after you, mate. Not like Rick. I'll look after you, mate.
Well, I appreciate someone does anyway.
Yeah.
Right.
Nice
Thanks,
one.
everyone.
Cheers, guys. And we'll catch everyone next week.
Cheers. Bye-bye.
Take care, everyone.